Hey everyone, welcome back to Expansive Astrology. This is Aquarius season week 4. I'm so thankful to have you here. Uh, let's hop right into it. This week, we're talking about Aquarius's strength in service. Aquarius is the water bearer of the zodiac, right? The water bearer who brings the most essential of substances and represents creation and the giving of life. Water symbolizes truth and reflects the Aquarian desire to be of use to others in some important way. So the experiment for this week is in permitting ourselves to heal ourselves so that we can be showing up at our absolute best in order to serve the planet, in order to reach our potential. And this week, we're healing ourselves by tapping in with our inner child, by empowering ourselves, healing old wounds, and truly honoring our impact on the world. Aquarius's mission is so important and so potent, and so it can cause us to kind of question ourselves and question, like, who am I? Who am I? Who am I to do this? I'm imperfect. I have all these triggers, all these issues. Who am I to think that I can serve the planet in some substantial way? Or beliefs might creep in like my impact is so small. No one respects me or notices me or would care if I weren't here, right? Ouch. Ouch. Those sorts of beliefs that can creep up. Honor the ouch in that, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about like imposter syndrome later, because that is all imposter syndrome, right? Part of the work of this week is honoring our impact where it is, wherever it lies, the ripple effects of who we are and what we bring to the world, honoring the depth of our impact. So notice any sort of brain chemistry, any sort of old stories around who am I? I don't make an impact. You do. You do. We all do. Part of the work is in knowing that you're enough, acknowledging our impact on the world around us. This requires trusting ourselves and the full force of what we are, trusting how much magic we can bring to the table, the power that we hold. I'm often talking about the difference between control and power, where we don't really have a whole lot of control, right? We can't control other people. We can't always control our circumstances. Like, we don't have a whole lot of control, but we do have so much power. We have so much power. And the sooner we tap in with that, the better. So last week I ended with a quote from Marianne Williamson, and I'm going to revisit it here. The quote mentions God, and the way I interpret this quote, when we say God, we mean everything. We mean the universe. We mean magic. We mean um, everything. So, quote: "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others." I love that quote, and we can see how Aquarian it is, talking about liberating others and showing up as we are, honoring that we have God within us, if you will, and it speaks about allowing ourselves to shine the way that children do. So let's talk about healing. Let's talk about that inner child. Drama. Trauma is often referred to, like some people consider capital T, big T trauma, and little t trauma. So that kind of encompasses things from war to car accidents to death and loss to uh, break-ins at your home to arguments with your parents to embarrassing moments in front of your peers. Um, Big T and little t trauma is everywhere. Sorry to say it. It doesn't discriminate. And it's all relative. And though we are very resilient and we're able to cope with a whole lot and bounce back in incredible ways, we're also fragile. We're also fragile. So don't compare trauma to other people. You know, others may have it worse, others may have it better, and it's all relative. Don't compare trauma, and don't underestimate it. In my opinion, it's better to baby ourselves about these things rather than to try to harden ourselves against these things. Um, my acupuncturist told me there's an acupuncture protocol called, as far as I know, an aggressive energy treatment. And my acupuncturist said that they recommend having an aggressive energy treatment anytime you are shaken and jarred so much as if you got cut off in traffic. Imagine babying yourself so much that every time you got cut off in traffic or anything like similar, uh, you booked yourself an acupuncture appointment. We need to, and that would be wonderful, right? And the idea um, holds a whole lot of privilege, right? And the point is that we need to baby ourselves when we get cut off in traffic. Like, that is jarring to us when we get into an argument, when the customer is rude to us. I'm not saying those things are necessarily traumatic, right? But they have an impact on us. They have a huge impact on us. And so whether we're acutely aware and whether we would chalk it up as a trauma or not, like, our body holds on to it. In fact, there's a wonderful book called The Body Keeps the Score, which is about trauma, and the impact of trauma. And even the title of the book is quite telling, right? The body keeps the score. Like, these things um, have an impact on us on some level, even if we're not very consciously aware of it. So we're talking about tapping in with our inner child this week. I love the idea that we are all of our ages all of the time. We have access to all sorts of versions of ourselves all of the time. And we have an inner child within, and an inner parent, and an inner teenager, right? Many people trace the concept of an inner child back to psychiatrist Carl Jung, who described a child archetype in his work. He linked this internal child to past experiences and memories of innocence and playfulness and creativity, along with hope for the future, which, if you ask me, sounds very Fool energy, right? That's very similar to the Fool card, which I talked about a couple weeks ago. You can revisit that if you need to. The inner child is all about innocence, playfulness, creativity, hope, shamelessness, living so fully. And when we're talking about big T traumas or little t traumas, a lot of the time as adults, we look back and we're like, it wasn't that bad. You know, almost all of us know somebody who had it worse. Many of us have the capacity to empathize with our parents or our caregivers and see, like, it wasn't that bad. That wasn't too bad. Like, could have been worse, right? But we have to remember that we're looking back on our lives through the lens of an adult. We have, as adults, a greater capacity to handle misgivings, I guess is the word I want to say. We have such a capacity to handle and kind of interpret differently those times where we were neglected in some way or embarrassed in some way or dampened, stifled, you know. When we look back as an adult, like, yeah, maybe it wasn't all that bad. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Um, and just be aware of that, that we have, we're looking back through the lens of adulthood, right? When we were children, some of those experiences hit in a much different way. We didn't have the capacity to emotionally deal or cope with some of the things that might have happened. And I don't mean to say that this is like a universal truth that all of us minimize our childhood. That's not necessarily true. Just be aware if you might be minimizing your experience. Be aware that your inner child was a child, that you were once a child, right? And you didn't know how to cope with friends talking behind your back or parents who were more preoccupied with their own lives and their own work than what you were bringing to the table. Like, you didn't know how to cope with those things. Now you do, right? But when you were a child, these things impact us big time, big time. So part of this work that we started last week was really being with, acknowledging, knowing what is a trigger, what are our triggers. And a trigger is any sort of disproportionate emotional reaction, right? Something happens that activates. I also like the word activated rather than just triggered, because the word triggered has become so like charged these days. People don't like the word triggered. I like the word activated. If something outside of you has activated all these emotions and all these reactions within you, and that might be a little bit disproportionate, right? I spoke last week about, I would come home, my partner would be cleaning the kitchen or starting dinner, and it would trigger, it would activate this whole thought process inside of me of like, he is only doing that because I just got home. I talked about that last week. There's no need to really get into it this week, but know what are your triggers? What are the beliefs that go along with those emotional reactions? Like having mega mindfulness for these sorts of things. Like when I see that the dishes are getting done, it activated all of these feelings um, of feeling undeserving of having the dishes be done for me. Um, and since I was feeling undeserving, I was afraid that resentment would build in my relationship and then I would lose my partner, right? So it wasn't just about the dishes or the kitchen being cleaned at all. It was about whether or not I was one day going to be abandoned by my partner who I so much care for. That's big shit. That's significant, right? The dishes are rather insignificant, relatively insignificant. The longevity of the relationship that I was am and was very invested in and jazzed about, uh, that warrants like a bigger emotional reaction, right? So the question is, elaborating or expanding on what we learned last week, who do you become when you are triggered? What age do you go to when you're triggered? And this can look different depending on the situation. Many of us become activated and maybe you become a 5-year-old version of yourself, an adult 5-year-old version of yourself, where maybe you slam the cupboards around, slam the door shut, throw a bit of an adult temper tantrum. Maybe you resort to name calling or don't mind my dog. Shouting, screaming. Maybe you retreat and lock yourself away in your room the way that you would when you were 10. Maybe you slam doors and start blasting music and post passive aggressive things on the internet like you would when you were a teenager, 17, whatever, I don't know, maybe you, um, who do you become when you're triggered, when you're activated? What age would you say that you become when you're triggered and activated? It's usually not pretty, usually not the most empowered types of behaviors, right? But it's simply your inner child knocking at the door. It's simply your inner child coming to the surface to say, I'm usually afraid. Usually there's fear there. Um, Anytime feelings of safety and security and belonging and acceptance feel threatened, that's usually when the inner child comes out, right? Because what do children need in order to thrive? They need those things. They need safety, security, belonging, acceptance. And if those things, and they need to, children need to feel a sense of freedom too at the same time, right? And when those feelings are threatened, the inner child comes out and is like, yeah, like help me. Um, so often I see people behaving, and myself included, I'm not exempt from this. So often I see people behaving in such disempowered ways, and I kind of look past the veil of the behaviors, and what is left over is a an inner child, a basic fragile human need from an inner child perspective of I need to be loved, I need to be accepted, I need to feel safe and secure. So this is why babying ourselves and parenting ourselves is such a huge key to this work. Empowering ourselves to provide for ourselves, not relying on anyone or anything outside of us to provide these feelings of safety and security and belonging and acceptance and freedom. Right? All of those things that you might seek from others, I challenge you to provide those things for yourself first. Never ask of others that which you can't provide for yourself. Okay, if you seek approval from others, respect from others, attention from others, nurturing from others, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whatever you seek from others, make damn sure that you're providing it for yourself first, and that you're providing it for the people that you're asking for it from first. The trick is to fulfill your own needs and then extend that outward rather than relying on any relationships to fulfill your needs. This way, when you do have people in your life who add to your approval or respect or attention or nurturing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, those things that we seek, when you have people in your life who add to that, you're both just on the same page and enhancing each other rather than seeking to fill a void that is no one's business but your own to fill. It's not your husband's business. It's not your sibling's business. It's not your friend's business. It's not your boyfriend's business. Uh, it's your responsibility to feel fulfilled. It's your responsibility to provide for yourself. Even if you have a parent or a husband who you feel, or, anybody, a very good friend, some sort of partner, a child, even if you feel like those people owe you something in your relationship, at the end of the day, that belief is not going to serve you. At the end of the day, it is your responsibility to fulfill your own needs. Because it's 2021. We're growing, we're grown, we're done relying on others to heal. Done. And besides, no one can do better for you than they can do for themselves anyway. Well, that's thinking. No one can do for you. No one can do better for you than they can do for themselves. And vice versa. You can't do for others what you can't do for yourself. That's why the whole cliche of you have to love yourself before you can love somebody else, I kind of hate it, but it's true. We can't provide to others what we can't provide to ourselves. Did I say that correctly? Too many can'ts. We can't provide for others anything that we can't provide for ourselves. It has to come from and for ourselves first. So how do we heal our inner child? How do we heal our inner child? I I kind of give myself a mini subconscious hug there. How do we heal our inner child? By listening, right? By giving space for our inner child, by noticing when that child is knocking at the door, the metaphorical door in our brain, noticing when the child is pulling on our sleeve, right? Were you a child who, when your parent was on the phone, they'd hold up the finger? 1 minute, 1 minute. Was never 1 minute, right? And we can't blame our parents for that. They were on the damn phone. They had adult stuff to do. They didn't need to watch me do a cartwheel for the 1000th time that week, right? And I can give my inner child more space than my parents were able to. Nothing against my parents. They did the best they could. But when my inner child comes pulling at my sleeve, knocking at my door, wanting me to watch myself do a cartwheel for the 1000th time that week, this is getting meta and weird. When my inner child comes knocking at my door, I can tell who's ever on the phone to hold on, because this is about healing myself. This is about giving my inner child that much respect and space, prioritizing my inner child's needs, playing, allowing play in our lives. Revisit Leo season if you have a hard time with play. Play is so important. Being an encouraging force for ourselves, encouraging ourselves to be that free and childlike and innocent and organic and pure and shameless, encouraging those things. Really caretaking ourselves, making sure that we're not keeping ourselves safe and sound, right? Making sure that we're not putting ourselves in situations that are going to, or I want to be careful, not placing ourselves in situations that we know might hurt or harm us. And that's not to say that we always have control over which situations end up hurting and harming us, right? No victim blaming, but caretaking and keeping ourselves safe and sound, honoring what comes up for us, honoring um, the complex and difficult emotions and reactions that might come up for us, honoring the fact that our inner child wants to do their 10,000th cartwheel of the week, advocating for ourselves, allowing ourselves, allowing feeling, right? That's how we heal the inner child. Respect, really, a whole lot of respect. And I say it all the time. I really believe it. I really stand by it that we are all big babies and we need to baby ourselves a little more. We're so fucking hard on ourselves because the rest of the world is so fucking hard on us, right? Um, can you baby yourself a little more? What would that look like? What might that do for you? Because Aquarius's mission is so important, to be of service of others, to bear the water for our communities, there can be a big challenge in knowing that you're enough. It's that little dash of imposter syndrome. Um, Sometimes Aquarius needs to be really careful about like a God complex, and sometimes there's imposter syndrome too, and those can exist at the same time. Um, so that's part of the challenge, is knowing that you are enough, knowing that you, when you are in the full force of your power, knowing, right? And I'm using the word knowing very intentionally, knowing without a doubt how vital you are to your world and your community, how many gifts you have to bring to your world and your community. The challenge is to step into like respect, radical respect for your life force, respecting your purpose here, even if we never have any earthly idea what the hell the purpose here is, why the hell we're here, why was I born? I don't know, but I'm going to work to honor the idea that there's got to be some sort of purpose, that I have thoughts and inspiration and desires all day, every day that don't just it doesn't just come from nowhere. Like it comes from something inside of me, and that's beautiful. I don't claim to know the purpose. I don't know what the hell we're doing here. And it's so important to acknowledge and honor our impact. I think of this all the time. I'm going to tell a quick little story. One of my first jobs was a pizza shop in my little town, and I worked there for several years from the time of 16 on. And I really used that. Like, I had a wonderful boss at that job who really helped me to like blossom and to um, become the woman that I am, like, frankly, honestly. Wonderful boss. And I, though I'm like kind of a shy person, pretty quiet, uh, I really used that job to shine, and to kind of test myself. And I loved working the front register. I loved taking the orders because we would get hella busy. And I liked feeling like a boss. And I liked keeping a really positive attitude no matter what was going on in the lobby or in the kitchen behind me, no matter how many pizzas we were behind, no matter how many times I dropped a fucking pizza. That was always the worst, dropping a pizza that somebody was waiting for. Oh God. I'm triggered just thinking about it. I don't know what this man saw in me. I don't know how long he was in the lobby. It couldn't have been more than 5 or 10 minutes, right? And he didn't see me have any significant or deep interactions with anybody. He didn't hear my life story. I don't know what he saw in me, but as he left with his hot and ready pizza, he said, I see a great strength and honesty in you. I was like 16 or 17 probably. And I was like, whoa, what? You saw that in me here right now? Do I know you? And I will never forget it. Whatever he saw, he stated, and it resonated with me, and it has stuck with me for more than a decade. um, and I like return to that and remind myself of that a stranger once saw my strength of honesty, and you know that just gives me a little boost. It gives me a little confidence. It gives me a sense of power. And um, he'll never know that he was like a little angel in my life and that I'm never going to forget him. He'll never know. Um, don't underestimate the whole long story short. um, don't underestimate the impact that you have, the ripple effect that you might have. Don't underestimate what it could do for a person if you speak your mind, if you state what you see. Acknowledge your impact. We can heal generational trauma. One of us can heal generations of trauma, of bullshit. There's a pretty popular meme that resurfaces every now and then. It's a row of burnt matches, and then one match is pulled out, and then the rest of the matches are unscathed. Um, and it speaks to the power of one stepping away, one making a change. Whether or not we have children ourselves, you can heal generational trauma. You can have a huge impact on the children in your community. Whether or not you have children, doing your work to heal your inner child, to grow past what was handed you generationally, can have a huge impact on your community and on children in your community. Don't underestimate it. In honor of Aquarius season, practice stretching your impact, practice noticing your impact, practice playing with your power. And you can do that by giving compliments to anybody when you think of them. I'm so glad that man told me that he saw a strength of honesty in me. I'm so glad. My little sister makes a point of complimenting strangers. If she sees something that she likes, she'll tell a stranger. And I've seen the impact that that has on strangers. I've seen my little sister brighten people's days just with a quick little passing compliment. It's beautiful. Don't underestimate your impact. Little acts of kindness. Share your uniqueness. Share who you are shamelessly. I know that feels risky sometimes. And the more we can become shameless, the more we're honoring our force, our life force, the magic that we were given to sprinkle around and spread around the world. Spread it, baby. You are innovative. You have a million thoughts per day that are unique and that come from your unique brain based on your unique experiences. Share it where it's safe and relatively comfortable. It won't always be comfortable, and it doesn't have to be. You can get vulnerable. Um, you're unique and innovative and have, again, a million thoughts per day that some probably are a little brighter than others. um, and we don't have to have shame around any of them. What serving the collective is not. I feel like it's really important. And I just have a quick little list. I want you to determine for yourself what is and is not service. Service for the collective and serving you. Overworking ourselves is not serving the collective. It's not. Even if you work as an ER nurse, if you're working 90 hours per week, you may be literally serving the collective, but that's not healthy. It's not healthy for you, and it can be dangerous for the collective, for the people that you're serving. Saying yes to anything is not like, what word do I want to use? Embodied service or empowered service. Saying yes to anything just because you can is not empowered service. Working 90 hours a week is not empowered service. Undervaluing our energy and what we bring to the table, that's not empowered service. Making a martyr of ourselves, which so many of us do, that's not empowered service. Burdening ourselves, feeling burdened by others' problems, is not empowered service. What is empowered? That's such a key. It's such a key. Your job, I mean, again, I don't claim to know the purpose of this existence that we've all been thrust into. And I can confidently say that your job here is to be the best, most vibrant, most embodied, unique version of your unique human essence that you possibly can be. That's the number one thing that you can do in this lifetime and feel confident at the end of your lifetime, knowing that you did this gig the best that you can, right? Is to become the fullest version of who and what you are that you possibly can. That's your job here. And that's what Aquarius really invites us to do. And so often we focus on Aquarius's weirdness or the water bearer aspect where Aquarius is here to kind of pave a new path and serve the collective, right? It's not often enough that we talk about how we do that. And a prerequisite to doing that is healing ourselves, honoring ourselves. We have to do we have to do that in order to fulfill the rest of what Aquarius brings to the table. And doing this inner child work and exploring some shamelessness, really getting to know what triggers or activates us when our inner child is pulling on our sleeve or knocking on our door. All of this work so brilliantly is preparing us for Pisces season. If Aquarius is about how we serve others, Pisces is all about how we serve ourselves in our inner worlds. So we're going to get even more into how we serve ourselves next month. Pisces is drawn to knowing fully, deeply, and wholly all that is involved in the universe and what it means to be alive here in this experience, right? Again, I don't propose to know the purpose, um, but Pisces is really into that kind of the depth of that sort of stuff. This Pisces is the sign that concludes the whole zodiacal wheel and invites us to complete what needs to be completed. So next season, we're diving even deeper into shadow work before we burst into the new astrological year with fiery Aries in March. Until then, I really invite you to be with Aquarius for the next week or so. Really experiment with honoring your inner child. Write your inner child a letter. Let them know that they are valued and loved and that they have space here, and that they don't have to work for your love, that they can. This was another meme that I saw going around. I think it was I can't quote it perfectly, but it was about like not making children work for your love. Like children are meant to rest in your love. Can you provide that for yourself? Space for your inner child to just rest in unconditional love and understanding and support. Um, and remember that this is healing yourself, honoring your inner child so that you can show up shamelessly and forcefully, but empowered, and not so forcefully that you're crowding others out, right? But forcefully, um, it's a prerequisite to bringing your life changing life force, world changing life force to your community. That's all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for being here. It means the world to me. I really appreciate it. I'm so honored to be able to gather with you in this way and talk with you. If you like what I'm doing here, it would mean the world to me if you would thumbs up this video, subscribe to my channel, take a super flattering screenshot and like share it on your Instagram stories if you like this sort of thing. It means the world. You can also join me on in my free Facebook group called Expansive Astrology if you're into that sort of thing. Otherwise, I will see you next Sunday for the first week of Pisces season. Some intense energy in Pisces season. I hope you're ready. Until then, take really good care of yourself. Again, thanks for being here. I will see you next time. Bye.